Morning, folks. Another beautiful sunny Cornish morning, Monday. What joy, eh? Although it's wonderful to actually wake up. Anyway, so Corbin was at Glastonbury on, I don't know, Saturday or Sunday, I don't know, who cares. But it's quite interesting that how he failed to win the election that they lined him up to win, and then they plonked him at Glastonbury to get all the youth to think he's wonderful. And you know what'll happen next, don't you? It's pretty obvious. May will call an election later in the year, and then Corbin will probably get in because of the youth vote. And then that will be the end of Brexit, allegedly. So we shall have to see, innit? Interesting times. They still haven't released the death figures for Grenfell Tower, and now they're all the councils are squabbling about who's going to pay for taking all the cladding off of all these tower blocks that have got substandard cladding, and they're trying to blame the government. National guidelines, I think the bloke from Portsmouth Council said. But that's a load of bollocks. Anybody with an ounce of sense, you try building a garage without building regulations, or putting up a flagpole in your garden, they'd be rained like a shot, telling you to rip it down. But the council can do, you know, a bodge job on its own tower blocks, and that's fine. That's that's up to government standards. Well, yeah, but maybe it is. But governments usually got woolly standards which are tightened up as you go down the food chain. But anybody with an ounce of sense wouldn't use cladding that burns on high-rise tower blocks, or any building for that matter. It just shouldn't be allowed. There's nothing wrong with Rockwool. You know, that don't burn. It's only plastic. And I bet the people in, you know, God bless them, in Grenfell Tower were dead before the fire got to them, probably from the cyanide gas that the PE gives off. So I think it's pretty disgusting what's going on at the moment. They've got these tower blocks in Camden and that. You can't help but thinking, are they trying to clear these people out? They'll find them alternative housing, and then they'll do them up for posh people, because Camden's an upcoming area, I think. Not that I would know, being in Cornwall, but they've been trying to gentrify London for ages. You know, and they're doing quite well. You know, they're starting to ship the homeless people out of the city and all that. You know, don't want them cluttering the streets up there. You know, because they're not really people. They're just dirt to be cleared off the streets. You know, no need to help them. They're obviously not worth helping. Anyway, it's only a short one today, or this morning anyway. Something else might happen during the day. Looks like Islamic State's been pretty much destroyed in Raqqa, which means that they'll move on to somewhere else. Probably Iran or Qatar, because that's where the Americans will send them next. You know, we all know that they're bought and paid for by the CIA. There's no secret about that. Although the Americans won't admit it, but you know, the money goes from the deep state in the US to Saudi Arabia, and then from Saudi to IS. Of course, you got Mossad and all that mixed up with it as well. But that's basically the follow the money. You should, with all this stuff, all you've got to do is follow the money. You know, it's back to Grenfell Tower for a minute. If it was the fact that government guidelines said oh, you can use any old crap you like on the outside of these tower blocks. You've got to remember, not so long ago, I don't know if you remember, last winter, with the PPI, the public-private partnership for all those schools in Scotland, they used substandard building materials, bodged it up, pocketed the money, allegedly, and then decent winds and storms were ripping the sides off the buildings. And yet the taxpayer has got to pay for those for the next 50 odd years or whatever it is. PPI was just a way of private companies owned by the people at the top to strip the taxpayer of money. They did a substandard job, and it's all about the privatisation. You know, and this Grenfell Tower stinks of the same thievery. Do it cheap. You know, they could have spent £5 extra a sheet, got the rock wall version, and everybody in Grenfell Tower would still be alive. But I think the powers that be just think life is cheap. Well, they do, because if you get a demonstration out on the streets, they don't send policemen out with shirts on, do they, and pointy hats. They send guys out with, all armoured up, with horses and batons and riot shields, and they're allowed to bash living hell out of the public who are just trying to be engaged in the political system. Of course, they don't really want you engaged in the political system at all. That's why they'd much rather you just did it in the ballot box, because then they can just ignore it. Well, they couldn't ignore Brexit, so now they've had to try and get Labour in, who said that we're not going to have Brexit. So they're desperately trying to not have a Brexit. Then they tried an election, and that didn't work either. Teresa May desperately tried to throw the election by upsetting all the pensioners and taxpayers and small businesses. She couldn't have tried much harder, you know, and yet she still failed. I think I smile at the irony of it all, because Brexit will go ahead eventually. You know, if you have a look on my YouTube channel, in the playlists in politics, you'll find a video there by ABC News from Australia, and they've taken Monty Python's Holy Grail and they've stuck Theresa May's face over it. If you haven't seen it yet, go and watch it, because she stood outside the castle, the French castle, and she's talking about Brexit, and the guy on the battlement is just blowing a raspberry and giving her the, taking the piss and that, you know, and that's exactly what it's like. It's really hilarious. So yeah, we live in very interesting times, so it's going to be more of this Grenfell type problems across the country, because councils have been out of control now for quite a few years. They've been allowed to run amok, they've been allowed to stash money in foreign bank accounts. If you download your council accounts for last year, or the last year that they were available for, I did it for Cornwall Council, and if you go through it, a lot of it's accountants spin, but you'll find a little head in there that says unusable reserves, and that's how much your council has got stashed away in hidden bank accounts all over the world, but they won't tell you. The other thing that a Local Government Act says is that when a council issues a budget, that's not a correct set of figures. That can just be made up load of shit. They call it, it's not a made up load of shit, it's a budget. So it's a made up load of shit that they can change at any time. So they make it up, They always say that they're short of money, and then they can whack a council tax up. And yet they've got all these hidden bank accounts with millions and millions stashed in it. I can't remember the figures for Kensington and Chelsea, but it's billions, I think, stashed away in foreign bank accounts. And we're not talking, the local high street bank in Calais. We're talking, Cayman Islands and all that, tax havens. So they're taking our money, they're putting it in basically hidden bank accounts that pay no UK tax on the interest. Where's that money going? Do you see them building old people's homes? Do you see coming round and resurfacing all the roads? Do you? Hell. So you've got to ask yourself, where's that money going? I'm not going to say any more than that. But they're obviously afraid to tell people where it's going, or they wouldn't hide it in the accounts, would they? And they're all at it. It's not just Cornwall. They're all at it. And they've been allowed to, because that's been government policy for years. It's the same as in the NHS. You've got the guys who are running the NHS, Parliament, the MPs and all that, and all the senior civil servants and all that, have all got directorships or on the payroll of nursing agencies. So what they do is they make staffed nurses who are on the staff, they make their life hell, give them really shit shifts, give them crap pay rises, and just basically treat them like crap. And then an agency comes along and says, oh, well, why don't you come and work for us? You can pick and choose your shifts. We'll pay you a third more than you're on now. It's a win-win situation. So the nurse says, screw this, and goes over and works for the agency. The agency then bills the NHS by usually 10 or 15% more than the nurse is on. And then obviously the directors and the shareholders pocket that extra money. So it's destruction by design. The NHS is being destroyed from the inside by design, and it goes right across. And a lot of this is from common purpose training. If you haven't come across common purpose before, look it up. It's a political charity that teaches people to work outside their authority. So basically it teaches people to ignore the rules completely and just go and do whatever they feel is right, or whatever their political masters feel is right. But their other friends in their network. It's an insidious charity. Shouldn't be a charity, actually. It should be a subversive organisation. It should be on the terrorist watch list. But there you go. Anyway, that's my Monday morning rant over. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you some other time.